Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the sky changed color. He stood on the command deck of the New Angeles Defense Station, watching the sun rise over the Pacific Ocean. The year was 2157, and humanity had just started building homes on distant planets. Life felt good and full of hope. Then the shadows came. Massive ships appeared above every major city on Earth. They were so big that they blocked out the sun. Jake had never seen anything like them. The ships were dark and covered in strange markings. They made no sound as they hung in the air like sleeping giants. President Lisa Crawford appeared on every screen across the planet within minutes. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed fear. She spoke slowly and clearly. The aliens called themselves the Kethmori Dominion. They had sent a message that was simple and terrifying. Humanity had 72 hours to surrender completely, or they would destroy every living person on Earth. Jake felt his hands shake as he held his coffee cup. He had fought in 3 different wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. Around him, his team worked frantically at their computers. They were trying to understand the alien technology, but nothing made sense. The ships seemed to bend the laws of physics. Lieutenant Katie Sullivan ran into the command center. Her uniform was wrinkled and she looked like she had not slept. She had been working all night trying to contact the other defense stations around. The news was not good. Every major military base was reporting the same thing. The alien ships were everywhere and they were completely silent. Dr. Helen Carter arrived next. She was the smartest person Jake knew, and if anyone could figure out the alien technology, it would be her. She carried a tablet full of data about the alien ships. Her face was pale as she showed Jake the readings. The energy signatures were unlike anything humans had ever seen. The ships were using power sources that seemed impossible, Ben Rodriguez called from the communication center. He was their best engineer, and he had been trying to scan the alien vessels. His voice was shaky as he reported what he had found. The ships had weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Earth's most powerful defenses would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. The first attack came, exactly 72 hours later. Jake watched from his command post as beams of purple light shot down from the alien ships. Where the beams touched the ground, everything simply disappeared. Buildings, roads, people, all gone in an instant. The aliens were not using explosives or fire. They were using something that unmade matter itself. New York disappeared first, then London, then Tokyo. Jake could only watch as the greatest cities in human history became empty craters. The aliens were sending a message that was clear and brutal. Resistance was pointless. President Crawford appeared on the screens again. This time tears ran down her face as she spoke. Earth was surrendering. All military forces were ordered to stand down immediately. Humanity was giving up the fight before it really began. The alien ships landed 3 days later. They came down slowly and carefully, like they were afraid of breaking something valuable. The ships were even more impressive up close. They were covered in smooth metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Strange symbols glowed along their sides in colors that hurt to look at. The aliens themselves were tall and thin with gray skin that looked like stone. They wore armor that moved like it was alive. Their eyes were large and completely black. They spoke through machines that turned their thoughts into human words. Their leader called himself War Prime Zekthal. Zekthal gathered all the surviving human leaders in what used to be the United Nations building. Jake was there because he commanded one of the few defense stations still standing. The alien leader was taller than any human, and his presence filled the room with a cold feeling that made everyone uncomfortable. The War Prime spoke without emotion. Humans would be divided into work groups. All advanced technology would be taken away. All weapons would be destroyed. All governments would be dissolved. Humans would work to serve the Dominion until they proved they could be trusted. Most species took about 50 years to accept their new place in the galaxy, but something strange happened during that first week of occupation. Jake expected to see despair and hopelessness in the human survivors. Instead, he saw something different. In the work camps, humans helped each other. They shared food and water even when they had very little. They told jokes and stories to keep their spirits up. They sang songs that the aliens could not understand. Katie Sullivan was assigned to a work detail in the ruins of Chicago. She wrote secret messages on scraps of paper and hid them in places where other humans would find them. The messages were simple but powerful. Do not give up. We are still here. We will remember that Dr. Carter was forced to work in an alien laboratory. She pretended to be broken and defeated, but she was actually studying everything around her. She memorized the alien symbols and tried to understand how their machines worked. Every day she learned something new about their technology. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds before Earth. They knew exactly how to break the spirit of any species. They had done it many times before, but they had never encountered anything quite like humanity. They had never met a species that seemed to grow stronger when it was pushed down. They thought they were breaking humans, but something else was happening instead. Something that would surprise everyone. 6 months had passed since the aliens took control of Earth. Katie Sullivan crouched in the ruins of what used to be Chicago's downtown district. The Kethmori had destroyed most of the tall buildings, but left the underground tunnels mostly intact. These dark spaces had become home to hundreds of humans who refused to report to the work camps. Katie had been a Marine lieutenant before the invasion. Now she led a group of 23 people who called themselves the Chicago Resistance. They lived in old subway tunnels and abandoned basements. They ate whatever food they could find or steal from alien supply convoys. It was not much, but it was freedom. Ben Rodriguez sat in front of a collection of broken electronics in what used to be a shopping mall in Texas. He had been an engineer for NASA before the aliens came. Now he spent his days trying to understand alien technology by studying the pieces his people brought him from raids. Every scrap of alien metal was precious. Every broken device might hold the key to fighting back. The aliens had made new rules for humans. Everyone over the age of 12 had to work for the Dominion. Humans were not allowed to gather in groups larger than 5 people. They could not travel more than 10 miles from their assigned homes. They could not own any technology more advanced than simple tools. Anyone caught breaking these rules would be killed immediately, but humans were breaking the rules every single day. In dozens of cities around the world, small groups were forming in secret. They called themselves different names, but they all wanted the same thing. They wanted their planet back. Alex Turner had been a professional boxer before the invasion. Now he found himself in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. The aliens had built arenas in major cities where they forced humans to fight each other for entertainment. The Kethmori thought this would break human spirit by making people hurt each other for alien amusement. Alex stood in the center of the arena in what used to be Los Angeles. Thousands of aliens sat in the stands watching as he faced another human fighter. The other man was scared and desperate. He had been told that winners got extra food for their families. Alex could see the fear in the man's eyes, but Alex had a different plan. Instead of trying to hurt his opponent, he began to speak. His voice carried across the arena as he talked about courage and hope. He told stories about human heroes from history. He spoke about the day when Earth would be free again. The aliens did not understand what he was doing. They only saw 2 humans talking instead of fighting. The other fighter began to cry, not from fear but from hope. Alex helped him stand up straight, and they both raised their fists in the air. The human prisoners in the arena began to cheer. The sound echoed off the walls and filled the space with something the aliens had never heard before. It was the sound of people who refused to be broken. Dr. Helen Carter worked in an alien research facility built where Stanford University used to stand. The Kethmori had assigned her to clean equipment and carry supplies. They thought she was just another broken human worker. They had no idea that she was memorizing everything she saw. Helen had 3 other scientists working with her in secret. There was Dr. Sam Parker, a young physicist who pretended to have a head injury that made him seem slow and confused. There was Dr. Martha Green, an elderly chemistry professor who acted like she was too old and tired to be dangerous. There was Dr. Tony Martinez, a computer expert who seemed scared of everything, including his own shadow. Together they were learning how alien technology worked. They discovered that the Kethmori power sources used something called quantum field manipulation. It was complex but not impossible to understand. Human scientists had been working on similar theories for decades. The aliens were just much further ahead. The breakthrough came when Dr. Parker found a damaged alien power cell in the trash. He managed to hide it and bring it to their secret meeting place in an old storage room. When they opened it up, they could see the internal structure. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The device bent space and time to create unlimited energy. Ben Rodriguez received the information through a network of human messengers who traveled between cities. The Resistance had developed a communication system that used children and elderly people as couriers. The aliens paid little attention to these groups because they seemed harmless. It was a mistake that would cost the Kethmori dearly. Ben studied the drawings and notes that Dr. Carter had sent him. His hands shook as he realized what he was looking at. Humans could build this technology. It would take time and resources, but it was possible. For the first time since the invasion, the Resistance had a real chance to fight back with weapons that could match alien power. Katie Sullivan gathered her Resistance cell in the deep tunnels beneath Chicago. She had received messages from groups in 12 other cities. The network was growing every day. Humans were connecting with each other despite all the alien rules designed to keep them apart. They were sharing information, supplies, and most importantly, hope. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Resistance cells would coordinate attacks on alien supply depots across the planet. They would use the new technology that Dr. Carter and Ben Rodriguez were developing. It would be humanity's first real strike against their conquerors, but the aliens were not stupid. War Prime Zekthal had noticed that humans were not behaving like other conquered species. Usually, defeated populations became quiet and obedient. Within the first few months, humans were doing the opposite. They seemed to be getting more defiant as time went on. The War Prime decided to send a message that would crush human resistance once and for all. He ordered his forces to begin random executions in every major population center. Every day, alien soldiers would select humans at random and kill them in public. The message was clear. Resistance would only bring more death, but the executions had the opposite effect. Instead of breaking human spirit, they made the Resistance stronger. People who had been afraid to join the fight now volunteered in huge numbers. Parents who lost children wanted revenge. Workers who saw their friends killed became saboteurs. The aliens were creating exactly what they wanted to prevent. In her hidden laboratory, Dr. Carter made another discovery. The alien communication systems used frequencies that human technology could detect and intercept. The Resistance could listen to alien radio traffic and learn about their plans in advance. They could also send false messages that would confuse alien operations. The underground war was about to begin in earnest. Humans had spent 6 months learning how to hide and survive. Now they were ready to start learning how to fight back. The Kethmori had thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would quickly accept defeat. They were about to discover that they had made the biggest mistake in their military history. 2 years had passed since the Kethmori invasion began. Jake Morrison crouched behind the twisted remains of a burned-out car in what used to be downtown Seattle. In his hands, he held a weapon that looked like nothing humans had ever built before. It was a fusion of human engineering and alien technology. Created by the brilliant minds of the Resistance, the weapon hummed with quiet energy. Ben Rodriguez had spent 18 months figuring out how to combine human electronics with Kethmori power cells. The result was a rifle that could punch through alien armor like it was made of paper. Jake had 12 more weapons just like it. Carried by the best fighters in his Resistance cell, tonight was the night of Operation Midnight Sun. Resistance groups across 3 continents would attack alien supply depots at exactly the same moment. The goal was simple but ambitious. They would destroy months of alien supplies and free as many human prisoners as possible. If the operation succeeded, it would prove that humanity could fight back effectively. Katie Sullivan checked her watch in the ruins of Chicago. She commanded 47 resistance fighters who had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They had studied the alien supply depot for months, learning the guard patterns and security systems. Dr. Carter had provided them with devices that could disable alien sensors for exactly 37 minutes. The Chicago depot was one of the largest on the continent. It contained food, weapons, and equipment for alien forces across the entire region. More importantly, it held nearly 2,000 human prisoners who were being prepared for transport to alien worlds. Katie's job was to get those people out alive. Dr. Carter sat in her hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of what used to be a hospital. She was not going to be part of the fighting, but her role was just as important. She would coordinate communications between all the resistance cells during the operation. She had built a network of hidden transmitters that could send messages faster than alien communication systems. Her hands moved quickly across a control panel made from dozens of different alien devices. Each transmitter was connected to a resistance cell in a different city. Boston, Miami, Denver, Phoenix, Portland, and 8 other locations all showed green lights on her display. Everyone was ready. Ben Rodriguez led his team through the underground tunnels beneath Houston. The alien depot there was built on top of an old oil refinery. The Keth Mori had chosen the location because it had good access to transportation routes. They had no idea that the refinery connected to hundreds of miles of underground pipelines that resistance fighters could use to move unseen. His team carried special charges designed to destroy alien equipment without harming human prisoners. The explosives were another example of human creativity combining with alien technology. They would create electromagnetic pulses that would shut down alien systems while leaving biological tissue completely unharmed. Alex Turner had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the operation. He would create a distraction at the alien arena in Los Angeles while other resistance fighters attacked the nearby supply depot. Alex had become famous among human prisoners for his speeches during the fighting matches. Tonight he would give his most important performance. The arena was filled with aliens who had come to watch humans fight for their entertainment. Alex walked into the center of the fighting area, but he was not alone. 12 other human fighters entered with him. They were all resistance members who had been captured on purpose to get inside the arena. Alex began to speak. His voice carried clearly through the arena sound system. He talked about the day when humans would be free again. He described the courage of resistance fighters who risked everything for their people. He told the watching aliens that humanity would never accept defeat. The aliens in the audience began to feel uncomfortable. This was not what they expected to see. Humans were supposed to fight each other, not give speeches about hope and resistance. Security guards moved toward the fighting area, but they were too late. The other resistance fighters revealed weapons they had hidden in their clothing. Small devices that looked like alien technology, but had been modified by human engineers. The weapons sent out signals that disabled alien equipment throughout the arena. Emergency lights went out. Security systems failed. Communication devices stopped working. At exactly midnight, resistance cells across 3 continents began their attacks. Jake Morrison led his team against the Seattle depot using routes they had memorized during months of careful scouting. They moved through the darkness like shadows, using alien technology to stay invisible to alien sensors. The first guards never knew what hit them. Human-made weapons fired beams of energy that stunned alien soldiers without killing them. The resistance had decided that they would not become murderers like their enemies. They would fight to win, but they would not lose their humanity in the process. Katie Sullivan's team reached the prisoner holding area in Chicago ahead of schedule. They found humans packed into metal cages like animals. Many of the prisoners were sick and weak from poor treatment. Some had been tortured for information about resistance activities. All of them were ready to fight for their freedom. The rescue operation moved like clockwork. Resistance fighters used alien key cards they had stolen to open the prison cells. They distributed weapons and equipment to prisoners who were strong enough to fight. They organized escape routes that would get everyone to safety in the underground tunnel networks. Ben Rodriguez's team in Houston faced heavier resistance than expected. The aliens had placed extra guards at their depot after receiving reports of increased resistance activity. The fighting was fierce but brief. Human weapons proved superior to alien armor, and the depot was captured within an hour. The most important discovery came when Ben's team reached the depot's main storage area. They found not just supplies and equipment, but also alien intelligence. Files. The Kethmori had detailed records of every resistance cell they knew about. They also had plans for something called the Final Solution. Dr. Carter received the intelligence files through her communication network. What she read made her blood run cold. The Kethmori were planning to kill 90% of the human population within the next 6 months. They had decided that humans were too dangerous to keep as workers. The resistance attacks had convinced them that the entire species needed to be eliminated. The immediate result of Operation Midnight Sun exceeded everyone's expectations. 12 alien-supplied depots were destroyed or captured. More than 8,000 human prisoners were freed. Tons of alien equipment and weapons fell into resistance hands. Most importantly, humanity had proven that it could coordinate large-scale military operations against its conquerors, but the victory came with a terrible price. War Prime Zekthal was furious about the resistance success. He ordered immediate retaliation against human population centers. Alien warships destroyed 3 entire cities, killing millions of innocent people who had nothing to do with the resistance. The War Prime appeared on screens across the planet with a message that chilled every human who heard it. For every alien killed by the resistance, 1,000 humans would die. For every facility destroyed, an entire city would be eliminated. Humanity had 2 choices: surrender the resistance fighters or watch their species be exterminated. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of Seattle and listened to the alien ultimatum. Around him, other resistance fighters waited for orders. They had won their first major victory against the aliens, but the cost was almost too terrible to bear. Millions of innocent people had died because of their success. The decision came from an unexpected source. Instead of demanding that the resistance surrender, the surviving human population began joining the rebellion in massive numbers. Parents who had lost children to alien retaliation wanted revenge. Workers who had watched their cities burn decided that they had nothing left to lose. Katie Sullivan received thousands of volunteers in Chicago alone. People brought whatever weapons they could find and begged to join the fight. They understood that the aliens planned to kill most of humanity anyway. If they were going to die, they wanted to die fighting for their freedom. The resistance had achieved something that no Kethmori commander thought was possible. They had united an entire species in rebellion against overwhelming odds. The real war for Earth's freedom was about to begin. The war had been going on for 3 years when Danny Walsh first met Liwei in the ruins of what used to be San Francisco. Danny was an American soldier who had been fighting aliens since the first day of the invasion. Liwei was a Chinese engineer who had escaped from a Kethmori work camp 6 months earlier. Neither man spoke the other's language, but they understood each other perfectly. They were both part of the Pacific Coast Resistance, a group that had grown from a few hundred fighters to over 20,000 people. The resistance included soldiers from 12 different countries, scientists from dozens of universities, and ordinary people who had lost everything to the alien occupation. What had started as separate groups fighting alone had become something much more powerful. Danny and Liwei worked together to set up a trap for an alien patrol. They used hand signals and drawings in the dirt to communicate their plan. Danny would create a distraction while Liwei used his engineering skills to collapse a damaged bridge on top of the alien vehicles. It was a simple plan, but it required perfect timing and complete trust between 2 people who had been enemies before the invasion. Nina Volkov flew her captured alien fighter through the clouds above what used to be Moscow. She had been a pilot in the Russian Air Force before the Kethmori came. Now she led a squadron of stolen alien aircraft piloted by humans from 8 different countries. Her wingman was Carlos Santos, a Brazilian computer expert who had learned to fly alien ships by studying their control systems. For months, the alien ships were faster and more powerful than anything humans had built before the invasion. But they were designed for Kethmori pilots who thought in straight lines and followed predictable patterns. Human pilots like Nina and Carlos flew with creativity and unpredictability that confused alien defense systems. They could make the ships do things that their original designers never intended. Dr. Carter had made another breakthrough in her hidden laboratory. She had successfully combined alien biotechnology with human genetic material. The results were beyond anything she had hoped for. Humans who volunteered for the treatment gained physical abilities that matched or exceeded those of Kethmori warriors. Ryan Mitchell had been an Olympic athlete before the invasion. He volunteered to be the first test subject for Dr. Carter's enhancement process. The treatment took 3 days and was extremely painful. When it was over, Ryan could run faster than any human in history. He could lift weights that would have crushed him before. His reflexes were so quick that he could dodge alien energy weapons, but the enhancements came with risks. Not everyone survived the treatment. Dr. Carter lost 12 volunteers before she perfected the process. Each death weighed heavily on her conscience, but the volunteers knew the dangers. They were willing to risk everything to give humanity a chance to fight back on equal terms. Jake Morrison had been promoted to General of the Human Liberation Army. The resistance had grown so large that it needed proper military organization. Jake commanded over 1 million fighters spread across 6 continents. They were no longer just hiding and conducting hit-and-run attacks. They were fighting a real war with battle lines and strategic objectives. The Liberation Army had captured entire cities from alien control. They held territory in the American Southwest, parts of Australia, regions of Africa, and scattered areas in Europe and Asia. These free zones became centers of human innovation and resistance. Scientists worked openly on new weapons and technologies. Engineers built factories to produce equipment for the war effort. Katie Sullivan commanded the defense of Free Chicago, one of the largest human-controlled cities. The Kethmori had tried to retake the city 4 times, but human defenders had turned back every attack. The city had become a symbol of human resistance and a beacon of hope for people still living under alien occupation. The defense of Free Chicago showed how much humans had learned about warfare in 3 years of fighting. The city was protected by a network of underground tunnels, hidden weapon emplacements, and captured alien shield generators. Human fighters used tactics that combined traditional military strategy with alien technology in ways that confused and frustrated Kethmori commanders. Ben Rodriguez had established the largest weapons factory in the Free Territories. His facility in the Texas underground produced hybrid weapons that were superior to anything either species had built alone. Human creativity combined with alien technology created tools of war that neither side could have imagined before the occupation began. The factory employed over 3,000 people who worked around the clock to supply the Liberation Army. They built rifles that could penetrate any alien armor, vehicles that could move faster than alien transports and communication, equipment that could not be intercepted by enemy forces. Most importantly, they built hope. Alex Turner led the Enhanced Division, a unit of volunteers who had survived Dr. Carter's biotechnology treatment. These super soldiers could fight Kethmori warriors in hand-to-hand combat and win. They were used for the most dangerous missions that required abilities beyond normal human limits. The Enhanced Division conducted operations that had been impossible before the biotechnology breakthrough. They infiltrated alien bases that were thought to be impregnable. They rescued human prisoners from facilities deep in enemy territory. They gathered intelligence that helped the Liberation Army plan major offensives against alien strongholds. But the most important change was not in technology or tactics. It was in the human spirit itself. 3 years of war had transformed humanity into something new. People who had never spoken to each other before the invasion now worked together like family members. National boundaries and old conflicts had become meaningless in the face of a common enemy. Dr. Sam Parker worked with scientists from every continent to develop new strategies for fighting the aliens. His research team included people who had been enemies before the invasion. Former military officers from opposing countries shared their knowledge freely. Scientists who had competed for research funding now collaborated without hesitation. The cooperation extended beyond military matters. Human communities in the free territories created new forms of government based on cooperation rather than competition. They shared resources according to need rather than wealth. They made decisions through consensus rather than force. The alien occupation had accidentally created the most unified human civilization in history. Martha Green taught classes in the underground schools of free Chicago. Her students were children who had grown up during the war. They learned mathematics and science alongside combat training and alien technology. They spoke multiple languages because the resistance needed people who could communicate across cultural boundaries. These children were growing up with a different understanding of what it meant to be human. They saw diversity as strength rather than weakness. They viewed cooperation as natural rather than difficult. They believed that any problem could be solved if people worked together with determination and creativity. War Prime Zekthal studied reports from his commanders with growing confusion and concern. Every species the Kethmori had conquered before had followed the same pattern. Initial resistance followed by gradual acceptance of defeat. Humans were doing the opposite. The longer the war continued, the more effective they became, the Kethmori. Military had been designed to fight conventional wars against conventional enemies. They had overwhelming technological superiority and vast resources. They had never faced an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Human tactics evolved constantly while alien strategies remained fixed and predictable. Tony Martinez intercepted alien communications from his base in the Florida underground. The messages revealed that the Kethmori were struggling to maintain control of their empire. Other conquered species had begun their own rebellions inspired by human resistance. The galaxy-spanning dominion was starting to crack under pressure it had never experienced before. The most disturbing news for the aliens came from their homeworlds. Young Kethmori were questioning the wisdom of their leaders for the first time in their species' history. They were asking why the Dominion needed to conquer other species at all. The idea of voluntary cooperation between different peoples was spreading even among the conquerors themselves. LeVar Brooks commanded the orbital defense platform that protected free Australia. She had been an astronaut before the invasion, and now she led humanity's first space-based military operations. Her platform was built from captured alien technology and defended the southern continent from orbital bombardment. The platform represented something that no Kethmori strategist had thought possible. Humans were not just fighting to survive on their home planet. They were beginning to contest alien control of space itself. They were building the foundation for taking the war beyond Earth's atmosphere. Patricia King coordinated intelligence operations from her command center in the Canadian wilderness. She had access to a network of spies and informants that reached into every aspect of alien-controlled territory. Her people gathered information about alien plans, movements, and weaknesses that helped the Liberation Army stay one step ahead of their enemies. The intelligence network revealed that the Kethmori were facing problems they had never encountered before. 5 years after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's skies, General Jake Morrison stood in the command center of New Liberty, the capital city of the Human Liberation Territories. Through the massive windows, he could see the skyline of a city that had been built entirely during the war years. Gleaming towers made from hybrid human-alien technology reached toward the clouds. Aircraft that combined the best of both civilizations moved through the air in organized patterns. The Human Liberation Army had evolved far beyond anyone's expectations. What had started as scattered resistance groups hiding in ruins had become a professional military force with over 5 million active soldiers. They controlled nearly 30% of Earth's surface and had established permanent bases on the Moon and Mars. More importantly, they had gained something that no Kethmori commander thought possible: the respect of their enemies. Katie Sullivan commanded the 3rd Liberation Corps from her headquarters in Free Chicago. Her forces included enhanced soldiers, captured alien vehicles, and weapons that surpassed anything the Kethmori had brought to Earth. She was planning Operation Thunder Strike, an offensive that would liberate the entire Great Lakes region. From alien control, her staff included officers from dozens of countries who had learned to work together with perfect coordination. Colonel Li Wei served as her chief engineer, designing the assault vehicles they would use. Major Nina Volkov commanded the air support squadron that would provide cover for the ground forces. Captain Carlos Santos handled the electronic warfare systems that would blind alien sensors. The liberation territories had become centers of innovation that amazed even their creators. Dr. Carter led a research institute that employed over 10,000 scientists from every field of human knowledge. They had not only mastered alien technology, but had improved it in ways that surprised everyone. Human creativity combined with alien science had produced wonders that neither species could have achieved alone. Ryan Mitchell commanded the Enhanced Corps, an elite unit of super soldiers who had volunteered for biotechnology treatments. The enhancement process had been perfected over years of research and now had a survival rate of over 90%. Enhanced humans could match Kethmori warriors in physical combat and exceed them in tactical thinking and adaptability. The Enhanced Corps conducted missions that regular soldiers could not attempt. They infiltrated alien command centers, rescued human prisoners from heavily guarded facilities, and gathered intelligence from the deepest parts of enemy territory. They had become legendary among both human and alien forces for their courage and effectiveness. Ben Rodriguez had built the largest military-industrial complex in human history. His factories in the Texas underground produced everything the Liberation Army needed to fight a modern war: weapons, vehicles, aircraft, communications equipment, medical supplies, and food all flowed from his facilities in quantities that kept millions of soldiers equipped and ready for combat. But Ben's greatest achievement was not in manufacturing, but in organization. He had created a supply network that could deliver resources anywhere on Earth within hours. His logistics system was so efficient that Liberation Army units could operate indefinitely in enemy territory without losing effectiveness. Dr. Sam Parker led the development of humanity's first faster-than-light communication system. Using principles learned from captured alien technology, his team had built transmitters that could send messages across the solar system instantly. The system gave human forces a crucial advantage over aliens who relied on slower communication methods. The breakthrough came when Sam realized that alien communication technology was based on quantum entanglement principles that humans had understood for over a century. By combining human theoretical knowledge with alien practical application, his team created a system that was faster and more secure than anything the Kethmori possessed. Martha Green had established the Academy of Human Sciences in the underground cities beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her institution trained the next generation of human scientists, engineers, and military leaders. Students learned to think in ways that combined human intuition with alien logic, creating new approaches to problems that neither species had solved. Alone, the Academy's graduates were already making important contributions to the war effort. Young engineers designed weapon systems that confused alien tacticians. Student pilots flew captured alien fighters with skill that amazed their instructors. Teenage scientists made discoveries that advanced human understanding of physics and biology by decades. Alex Turner led a special mission that would change the course of the war. Intelligence reports suggested that the Kethmori kept their most important military secrets in a heavily defended facility on the dark side of the moon. The base was thought to be impregnable, but Turner's enhanced division had been tasked with proving that assumption wrong. The mission required a level of coordination that would have been impossible in the early years of the war. Human-built spacecraft would transport the assault team to lunar orbit. Enhanced soldiers would use captured alien equipment to penetrate the base's defenses. Scientists would analyze whatever intelligence they found and transmit it back to Earth instantly. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the spacecraft that carried Turner's team to the moon. She had learned to fly alien vessels by studying their control systems and adapting them for human use. Her ship was a hybrid creation that combined the best features of both technologies. It was faster than any pure alien design and more maneuverable than any human creation. The lunar assault was a complete success. Turner's team penetrated the alien base and captured intact control systems that revealed the structure of the entire Kethmori communication network. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had access to real-time intelligence about alien operations throughout the galaxy. Dr. Carter analyzed the captured data with growing excitement and horror. The intelligence revealed that the Kethmori Dominion was much larger than anyone had imagined. They controlled hundreds of star systems and had enslaved dozens of intelligent species. But the data also showed that the Empire was facing unprecedented challenges. The human rebellion had inspired similar uprisings on over 40 worlds. Species that had accepted Kethmori rule for centuries were suddenly demanding their freedom. The Dominion's military forces were spread thin, trying to maintain control of an empire that was fragmenting from within. War Prime Zechthel faced a crisis that no Kethmori leader had ever encountered. His superiors on the home worlds were demanding explanations for the military disasters on Earth. Other conquered species were openly defying Dominion authority. Young Kethmori soldiers were questioning orders for the first time in their species history. The War Prime had requested massive reinforcements to crush the human rebellion, but his requests were being denied. The Dominion's leadership was more concerned about rebellions closer to their core territories. Earth had become a low priority in a galaxy-wide crisis that threatened the survival of their entire empire. Tony Martinez coordinated the most ambitious intelligence operation in human history. Using the captured Kethmori communication network, his team began broadcasting messages of hope and rebellion to enslaved species throughout the galaxy. The messages were simple but powerful. Earth had proven that the Dominion could be defeated. The broadcasts had effects that exceeded everyone's expectations. Within weeks, major uprisings began on 12 different worlds. Alien species that had never communicated with each other began coordinating their resistance efforts. The galaxy-spanning empire that had seemed invincible was suddenly fighting for its survival on dozens of fronts. Danny Walsh led the assault on the last major alien stronghold in North America. The fortress had been built in the ruins of Washington, D.C. and served as the command center for all Kethmori operations on the continent. Its capture would effectively end alien control of the eastern United States. The battle for Washington lasted 6 days and involved over 200,000 soldiers from both sides. Human forces used tactics that had been perfected over 5 years of constant warfare. They combined traditional military strategies with alien technology in ways that confused and overwhelmed their enemies. The decisive moment came when enhanced division soldiers penetrated the fortress's inner defenses and captured the alien command center intact. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had taken a major Kethmori facility without destroying its equipment. The intelligence value was enormous. Nina Volkov commanded the air battle that raged above Washington during the assault. Her pilots flew captured alien fighters alongside human-built aircraft in perfect coordination. They had learned to use the speed and power of alien technology while maintaining the creativity and unpredictability that made human pilots so effective. The victory at Washington marked a turning point that everyone recognized. Human forces now controlled over half of North America and were advancing on multiple fronts around the world. The Liberation Army had grown from a desperate resistance movement into a military force capable of challenging alien control of Earth itself. But the most important change was not military but political. The final battle for Earth began at dawn on a Tuesday morning in the 6th year of the war. Admiral Patricia King stood on the bridge of the HSS Liberation, humanity's first true warship built entirely from hybrid technology. Through the viewports, she could see the massive Kethmori fleet that had arrived during the night. Hundreds of alien vessels hung in space above Earth, representing the last major force the Dominion could spare for the human problem. War Prime Zekthal had made his final gambit. Rather than continue the grinding war of attrition that was bleeding his empire dry, he had brought every available ship to Earth for one decisive battle. His plan was simple and brutal: destroy the human homeworld completely rather than lose. Faced by admitting defeat to a species the Dominion considered primitive, General Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from his command center on Luna Base Alpha. Human forces were spread throughout the solar system, ready to fight the largest space battle in the history of either species. The Liberation Fleet included captured alien vessels, human-built ships, and hybrid designs that combined the best features of both technologies. Commander Tony Martinez led a squadron of enhanced fighters toward the alien fleet. His pilots included humans from every continent and several alien defectors who had joined the human cause. They flew ships that moved with a grace and unpredictability that confused Kethmori tactical computers. The aliens had designed their vessels for straightforward combat, not for the creative chaos that human pilots brought to battle. Captain Laura Brooks commanded the defense of Earth's orbital space from her flagship, the HSS Defiance. Her fleet included vessels that had been built in the hidden shipyards of the asteroid belt using resources mined by human workers and alien volunteers. The ships represented 6 years of human innovation under impossible circumstances. The battle began when alien warships opened fire on human orbital installations. But the expected easy victory did not materialize. Human shields held against the bombardment while return fire from hybrid weapons systems caused devastating damage to alien vessels. The technology that was supposed to guarantee Kethmori superiority had been matched and exceeded by human ingenuity. Dr. Carter watched the battle from her laboratory on Mars, where she coordinated the most important part of the human strategy. Her team had spent months preparing a weapon that would end the war without destroying either species. They had modified the captured Kethmori communication network to broadcast a signal that would reach every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. The signal contained something that no alien civilization had ever experienced: a message of hope and freedom transmitted by a species that had refused to accept defeat. The broadcast would reach enslaved populations on hundreds of worlds at the moment of humanity's greatest victory. It would prove that the Dominion could be defeated and that freedom was possible for every intelligent species. Ryan Mitchell led the Enhanced Division in the most dangerous part of the battle plan. His super soldiers would board the alien command ship and capture War Prime Zekthal alive. The mission required abilities that only enhanced humans possessed, along with courage that went beyond normal human limits. The assault on the command ship began when stealth fighters piloted by Carlos Santos and his team created openings in the alien defensive perimeter. The Enhanced Division used captured alien teleportation technology to board the massive vessel directly. They fought their way through corridors designed for beings larger and stronger than normal humans, using speed and tactics to overcome superior alien physical abilities. War Prime Zekthal waited in his command center surrounded by his most elite guards. He had spent his entire military career conquering species throughout the galaxy. He had never experienced defeat and could not understand how primitive humans had created technology superior to his own. His worldview was crumbling along with his empire. The battle raged across Earth's entire orbital space and extended to the outer planets where human colonies had established their own defense forces. On Europa, defenders led by former engineer Ben Rodriguez held off alien landing parties using weapons that turned the moon's ice into defensive barriers. On Titan, resistance fighters commanded by Katie Sullivan used the dense atmosphere to hide from alien sensors while launching surprise attacks. Nina Volkov commanded the fighter squadrons that protected the larger human warships from alien bombers. Her pilots had learned to use alien weapons in ways their designers never intended. They flew with a creativity that made their movements unpredictable to enemy targeting systems. The disciplined formations that Kethmori pilots relied on became liabilities against opponents who attacked from unexpected directions. The turning point came when Ryan Mitchell's team reached the alien command center. They found War Prime Zekthul issuing orders for the complete destruction of Earth's biosphere. The alien commander would rather commit genocide than accept that his species could be defeated by beings he considered inferior, but something unexpected happened when the Enhanced Division burst into the command center. Several Kethmori officers turned their weapons on their own commander instead of fighting the humans. They had been listening to the broadcast that Dr. Carter's team transmitted. Throughout the battle, for the first time in their lives, they had heard ideas about cooperation and freedom that made more sense than endless conquest. The mutiny spread through the alien fleet faster than anyone could have predicted. Kethmori soldiers who had grown tired of fighting endless wars suddenly had an alternative to blind obedience. Ship after ship declared that they would no longer follow orders to commit genocide against a species that had proven its worth through 6 years of incredible resistance. Alex Turner coordinated the space-based assault teams that captured key alien vessels before their crews could destroy them. His enhanced soldiers worked alongside alien defectors who provided crucial intelligence about ship layouts and security systems. The cooperation between former enemies demonstrated the possibility of a galaxy where different species could work together as equals. Dr. Sam Parker transmitted the final message that ended the war without destroying either civilization. His broadcast reached every world in the Kethmori Dominion simultaneously, carrying proof that the human rebellion had succeeded. The message included technical specifications for the hybrid technologies that humans had developed, offered freely to any species that wanted to build their own defenses against oppression. Martha Green watched from her teaching post in Free Chicago as reports of surrender came in from alien forces around the globe. Her students, young people who had grown up during the war years, understood that they were witnessing the birth of a new kind of galactic civilization. They had learned that diversity and cooperation were sources of strength rather than weakness. The surrender of War Prime Zekthul came not through military defeat but through a choice made by his own officers. Faced with orders to destroy Earth rather than admit defeat, the Kethmori military leadership chose to preserve life rather than save face. They formally requested negotiations with human representatives to end a war that had already fundamentally changed both species. Danny Walsh found himself serving as a translator during the surrender negotiations. His years of working with alien defectors had taught him to speak several Kethmori dialects. He helped former enemies communicate with each other about building a future based on mutual respect rather than domination. Admiral King accepted the alien surrender from the bridge of her flagship while human celebrations erupted on every world where people had fought for their freedom. The species that had been conquered 6 years earlier had not only won their independence, but had inspired a galaxy-wide revolution that was still spreading to distant star systems. Tony Martinez coordinated the massive communication effort that announced humanity's victory to enslaved species throughout the galaxy. His broadcasts carried technical assistance for building defensive systems along with promises that Earth would help any species that chose to fight for its freedom. The human homeworld was offering to become the center of a galactic liberation movement. The aftermath of the battle revealed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. The Kethmori Dominion collapsed completely within months as species after species declared their independence. The galaxy-spanning empire that had seemed eternal simply dissolved when its subject peoples realized that freedom was possible. War Prime Zekthul spent his final years working with human scientists to develop new technologies for peaceful exploration and development. He wrote extensively about his experiences during the war, trying to understand how his species had failed to recognize the potential for cooperation with other intelligent beings. The former alien commander's memoirs became required reading in the schools of the new galactic civilization. He wrote about the day he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their absolute refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable. They approached every challenge with the assumption that there had to be a better way. 10 years after the first alien ships appeared over Earth, Admiral Morrison commanded a fleet of exploration vessels that carried humans and dozens of other species to unexplored regions of the galaxy.